Converted man here.
So the 2013 charts of Google's most popular searches in Australia are just in, with the top Google search at number 1 being "What is twerking?", shortly followed by "Who is God?". Now, on saying this, I don't think you have to be a genius to figure out which of the two questions is more important to be asking Google.
Twerking! Twerking! Please let it be twerking! Please let it be twerking! Please let it be twerking! Is it twerking?
I mean, one could potentially explain the reality of our existence.
Yes! I knew it was twerking! Haha! Alright! This is gonna be a great video with no logical fallacies at all!
I know there's a lot of skepticism surrounding this issue, and quite frankly, I don't blame you. I mean, the meaning of God has been thrown around so often we forgot what it means.
Whoa! 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 Wait a minute. You're not going to talk about twerking? Alright, start the logical fallacy counter.
So with all these misconstrued definitions of God, the least I could do is help clear the water and help us finally find out who is God.
Spoiler, he says it's Allah.
Well, to begin, let's start with the things that we all agree on. First and foremost, we're here. We just began and we exist. And like all things that begin to exist, they require a cause.
Oh, you mean start with stuff that we can't agree on. See, the problem here is we cannot say everything has a cause. We could say, as far as we have observed, things have a cause. Maybe except for quantum physics, which is kind of a weird area, so we're not going to talk about that. But, okay, so most things have a cause. But we could never say everything unless we have studied everything, which we haven't done yet.
Things don't just come out of nothing, and although at times we sometimes wish they would.
Okay, so we have a potential equivocation because depending on what you mean by nothing, this is again something that one can't say. If you mean the nothing that philosophers have often referred to, that nothing has never been shown to actually exist. It's a philosophical concept and nothing more. Not to make a play on words, but what does the word nothing mean? Think about that for a moment. It's a difficult concept because if you just go, well, I'm holding nothing. No, you're not. You're holding air. If you went into outer space, you would have to have a spacesuit on, but even then, if you held out your hand, you would still be holding something. There isn't a location where we can truly have what philosophers have referred to as nothing. So he has no example of nothingness. So where does this idea then come from that something can't come from nothing? Well, 0 plus 0 is still 0. Okay, but 0 is not the same thing as nothing. It is representative of having nothing, but it is not a real thing in the real universe. No numbers are. So where is this idea of nothing coming from? If it's simply language, which is what it is, okay, great. But this concept of nothing needs to be established as an entity outside of the brain in order to use it as a thing that we could then study and say, hey, look, we know what the properties of this thing are or are not, and therefore we can make deductive arguments based upon those properties. But we have no example of nothing. So this idea that something can't come from nothing is an outright lie. Unless or until you produce nothing and show the properties of it and explain how it exists outside of the brain as just a concept. Well, maybe you say, well, look, I can't do that, but what about philosophically speaking? Doesn't it intuitively make sense for something not to be able to come out of nothing? Not necessarily. Who's to say? Again, I don't have any example of nothing, so I don't know what could or couldn't come out of it.
They don't.
If I told you that this glass sprung into existence. This glass made itself. You said Muhammad Ali's crazy.
Yeah, I'm probably going to say Muhammad Ali is crazy anyways. I don't care what Muhammad Ali says. What is this, an appeal to novelty or popularity? I mean, who cares what some actor, boxer, famous person, philosopher, insert blank here has said? Don't care. What's your argument? If you have one, let's hear it. And I'm going to go ahead and save us all the trouble. It's the Kalam cosmological argument. We've heard this before. But he doesn't even do a good job presenting the Kalam cosmological argument. But I'm here. I might as well continue analyzing his video.
So in saying that, knowing the cause of us is crucial to understanding who God is.
Now, here comes another equivocation, because when he says the cause of us, he's not really talking about the cause of us. He's actually talking about the cause of the universe. Because if we just want to answer the question what the cause of us is, that's very simple. Our mom and dad. There you go. End of story. Well, thanks for coming. Oh, what caused that? Well, how far back do you want to go? You want to talk about biological evolution? That's the process that we came here by. If you want to talk about that, then you can't say what caused us. You would have to say what triggered abiogenesis, which would be a question you would need to ask a scientist that studies that. But that's not the question he's asking. He's saying, what caused us? Which is answerable very simply. So he equivocates what causes us with what causes the universe.
Although we are able to explain that we did have a beginning, as many leading cosmologists have affirmed, we are still left unanswered as to what was the cause of our beginning.
See, that's what I'm telling you. It's not us, it's the universe. So why not say that? I don't know. There's a bunch of potential reasons why one would equivocate like that. But yeah, he's right, and we could end the video right here. We don't know what happened before the Big Bang, or if there was a before the Big Bang at all, or what caused the Big Bang, if anything did cause the Big Bang, or how it happened, etc., etc. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and smarter people than I do the science on this, and they're going to come up with the mathematical formulas that explain it, and those are the people that we should ask, because they're the ones that are going to find the answers. Okay, that was a quick video. Oh, no, we're not done yet. Next, fallacies.
And before you lash out saying, oh, but we can't see what happened before we began, or you can't prove there was a creator, we say quite openly, neither can you disprove a creator.
So what? That doesn't mean anything. There's a whole lot of things we can't disprove. That doesn't make it true. If somebody was to write down every single thing that could not be disproven, how long of a book would that be? No, let's just guess how long that book would have to be. My mind tries to grapple the huge number of words that would have to be in there of all the different things that we can't disprove. That doesn't make those things true. It doesn't mean anything. You can't disprove that there isn't a teapot flying around Jupiter right now. You can't disprove that the center of the moon doesn't contain chocolate. And you say, oh, yes, I can with science. No, because you have to dig down into the center of the moon to disprove that. So you don't have the technology to do that, thus you've not disproven it, so therefore the center of the moon has chocolate in it until you disprove it. See, but that's not the way things work, because the burden is not on the person to disprove X, Y, and Z. It's on the person to prove the positive.
And by observing the reality of our world and our existence, its order, its structure, and the systems, I see no reason not to believe in a creator.
This is an appeal to the minority of one. I don't see any reason not to think X is true. Okay, I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. That's not my viewpoint. I don't agree with your viewpoint, so you haven't convinced me. It doesn't matter what you see as being true or false or right or wrong or left or right, because that's not an argumentation. Oh, I don't see any reason to think that there is a creator. And I look at the same stuff you're looking at. See, we're getting nowhere with that sort of approach. That's why it's logically invalid to invoke it as a thing. To say, oh, I see it this way. I don't see any other way that it could be but this way. Nothing but confirmation bias, nothing but a special knowledge claim, nothing but an appeal to my own personal beliefs. So there's nothing to go on when we have those sort of logical fallacies. If I want you to agree with me about something, I need to give you reasons why. Not that I think it's true, because that's not good enough. I need to give you actual reasons why we should think it's true.
But then one may ask, where did this creator come from? What was the cause of him? And it will go on forever and ever.
Yes, and in some theologies, that's exactly what happens. Mormonism has this, and Hinduism might sort of have this, although I don't really know a lot about Hinduism to say for sure that that's the way they view it. But nonetheless, there are theologies where there's an infinite chain of creators. So what? What's the difference between an infinite chain of creators and a creator that is infinite? Both seem to me to require an infinite of some sort. So either infinite is a thing that we have to have in order for this particular God to exist, or infinity is not a thing, therefore this particular God cannot exist. You can't have it both ways without special pleading.
For instance, when Steve Jobs makes an iPhone, he doesn't become the iPhone, he is separate.
How does he know that God is separate from the universe and didn't become the universe? And this raises more questions than it could ever hope to answer. If God is separate from the universe, if the only thing that exists before the universe is God, where is God? If God is all that there is, then what does God make the universe out of? If God makes the universe out of nothingness, then where's that nothingness, since all that there is God?
And of course we could also argue that he is one. This makes the most sense, and it would also avoid any potential conflict between two disputing all-powerful gods with conflicting interests.
I just wonder where all of this information about God comes from. It doesn't follow from the argument. So I suspect that it's circular argumentation. But he hasn't quoted from his holy book yet.
But we still don't know which God is he.
Are you Zeus? Are you Thor? Are you Yahweh?
Well, if you agree with everything I've said up until now, you will realize that each of these gods don't fit into our established criteria of who God is.
So let's just cherry pick something that Richard Dawkins said. Leave out our particular deity. I don't know if Dawkins happened to say Allah in that particular instance. And just pretend like that's the only deities out there. There's like, what, 3 deities that you listed? Wow. Thor, Yahweh, and Zeus. That's it? That's it? There's like 10,000 plus more deities. Let's just ignore those. So you're cherry picking what deities as well. Wow. And then this made up list that he is talking about that God has to fit, and he's asserting that only his God fits that list. But I could make up a God that fits this list, and what's to prevent me from doing that? Nothing. Oh, but it's created by you. Yeah, and it still fits the criteria. See, fitting the criteria is not enough to show that it isn't made up by a human.
They are all created beings, they are not eternal, they have not created anything, they are dependent, and they require sleep, rest, oxygen, and food.
So this guy's an outright liar at this point, which we already knew. I mean, he's been producing logical fallacies left and right. But now he's just being dishonest on top of it. Jesus' picture was up there, not Yahweh. So I would have to agree with this made-up list that Jesus was created, if it existed at all, if he existed at all, did have to eat and sleep. But that fits perfectly within Christian mythology. But still, okay, what happened to Yahweh? Yahweh doesn't have to eat or sleep. Okay, but Yahweh rested on the sixth day, but maybe he didn't have to do it. Maybe he just wanted to do it. But still, okay, what happened to Yahweh? He's gone. It's replaced by Jesus. Who cares? Whatever. Nobody will notice that little trick there. But even though we're still ignoring the other 10,000 plus deities, here's how I would do it. Okay, all deities are deities we should be skeptical of unless and until we have empirical evidence, a repeatable test, or a logically coherent argument, or all three. Then we wouldn't have to be skeptical of those deities. The deity that I want to talk to you about is one that I'm going to give you a logically coherent argument for. Here's that logically coherent argument for that particular deity. Present that argument. That's how I would do this if I was wanting to do this. But he doesn't have a logically coherent argument. He just has the Kalam cosmological argument, which he's not even really presenting very well. So he can't do it the way I would do it, because he would still present us with a argument that's not coherent. And you could still apply his argument to Yahweh and other deities too. So it still doesn't single out his deity the way that he wants it to.
Are you Zeus? Are you Thor? Are you Yahweh?
Oh goody, cherry picking.
So who is the one and only true God? I present to you a God who is one and only, eternal, exists without a beginning, who was uncreated, requiring no cause for himself, yet being the absolute cause and creator of everything.
It's the God of Twerking! Yay! Now, you might not have heard about this God before, but I recently uncovered an ancient manuscript that's 4 billion and a half years old. And in it, it said that God is twerking, and that God will reveal itself, it's not a he or she, itself, by dance to us in this year, in about the year 2002 to 2015. It said between those years. It wasn't really sure when it was going to reveal itself. It said actually it might reveal itself a little bit earlier, but it won't become a phenomenon until later. And it also said that it will be the #1 search in Australia. Amazing. It knew about the internet before the internet existed. And so the God of Twerking matches all of these criterias, but actually goes one better, because it also says in this writing that I found that the God of Twerking is the real God and every other God is fake. And only the God of Twerking is the real God. And anyone that says otherwise is a poopy head, and they're wrong. So that proves it. So there you go. And also, it also says that you don't need an argument to prove twerking, that everyone knows that twerking is the actual God. And if you say otherwise, you're just lying to yourself.
Allah. A simple definition of God that is logical and rational.
No! No, 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 you don't get to say that. You do not get to say logically valid, coherent, anything with the word logic after this mess of video that you've already done. You don't get to say that. Your argument is not valid. It is poorly presented. And you have failed numerous times to actually give an argument in your own video. So no, you don't get to say that about your God yet. So no, no, this is an outright lie. He just said an outright lie, and made it, he used the word logic, and that's just not right. I mean, can't we just have a rule that says you're not allowed to make a lie and say the word logic? Anyways, look, alright, fine, whatever. I'm just gonna do twerking for you now. We interrupt this video to bring you how many logical fallacies can be made in 16 seconds! You can thank me later!
Stuns humanity with its accurate references to science and history, from accurate descriptions of the human embryo to historically accurate references to the different rulers in the different Egyptian dynasties. And no matter how many times people will try to discredit the Quran on its authenticity, it remains standing.
Thanks for playing! You had 7 logical fallacies in 16 seconds! Now, back to Deconverted Man! Okay, so we've got 22 logical fallacies, and I will never twerk on camera again. I'll answer that phone call later. The theist conclusion continues to be God of a particular type. And if they had a valid argument, then I would at least investigate further that particular conclusion. But I don't have that argument. We don't have that argument. And unless and until we have a logically coherent argument, we must continue to be skeptical of that conclusion. Particular religion